Just answering questions with waptek. Here we go. Following the American Civil War, various rules that existed before and after had interesting effects on things. Section 10, Clause 1, and Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8. I didn't include the article. I think it is also Article 1. But anyway, those are the names of the ones that prohibit the state and federal government from issuing titles of nobility or honor to anybody, deciding to get us out of the business of knighting people or making them dukes and duchesses and, hoity-toity shit. The 13th Amendment, right after the Civil War, was an amendment to the U.S. Constitution to abolish slavery and involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime, and had all sorts of other things involved in it. One of the parts that was proposed and never passed because it did not get ratified by the states was something called the Nobility Clause, or Titles of Nobility Amendment. It has various names, and I'll try to include all of them in the title so you find the video. It was never passed. It got past a certain point, but you can't just do it because it's one point. Now, some of you normal people might be wondering, why would this be important? Well, let me read what it was. If anyone accepted a title of nobility or honor from a foreign country, meaning that they would have divided loyalty, they might be given that as a way to entice them to just leave and become a citizen of another country, whatever. If they didn't get permission from the U.S. government through Congress specifically, which they could grant without this permission or permit, they would immediately be stripped of their U.S. citizenship, or potentially. And it went through lots of changes. It also said that they would lose the ability, by definition, as well, of being, depending on the version you looked up, of being able to hold office or anything else. Because the idea here is to get rid of any kind of divided loyalty. And also, so that we could thumb our nose at anybody who said, you have to call me His Lordship. No, I won't. I'm an American. We don't respect any of that. Now, this was never passed. It got through certain stages, but it didn't do all of them. And it had to be ratified by all of the states, or the majority of them. And it was a specific number. And as the number of states in the United States increased, it required more states to ratify it after a time. In the 1800s, it got really close to being passed, but it's been just kind of dropped since then because it's not really important. And this means that right now, if you went over to England, as long as you don't claim an oath to another country, many of them require that in order for you to accept such a thing. Unless you renounce your oath to the United States, if you ever made one, or make an oath to another country, if you don't do that. If you can just accept an honorary statement like, well, we're declaring you an honorary, German citizen, and we'll tap you on each shoulder with a big sausage, and you're declared, Burgermeister Meisterburger. Look up the cartoon for that. There isn't any punishment for it. It's just considered just some, informality kind of thing, or formality thing. It's not treated as anything serious. Now, the other assertion that's made about this is that this is basically no nobility could be in public office. Now, what crazy bullshit could someone come up with to try to make this important in some sort of conversation about something on the internet? Well, they would then just defiantly say it was ratified and it's a law and I'm going to invoke it. And I'm going to bring it up in court, even though the court will say it was never ratified. Why are you doing that? And I'm going to deliberately misapply it to lawyers or whatever. Because I'm going to claim lawyers have a nobility or honorary ID code to them, some super secret lizard shape-shifting Queen Elizabeth thing. So they can't hold all office. So I'm going to challenge their ability to be the boss of me. Now, this is all hinging on purpose, not just a precarious pile of petty bullshit here, but literally lying about history and ignoring it, because it's a false claim to apply it to lawyers because they are not in a class that is relevant, because they are not, by definition, acknowledged by the United States and Congress and the country you're claiming gave them nobility as having nobility or any kind of title. You can make the claim all you want to, but again, this was never passed. It was never ratified by enough states to become part of the Constitution. All the states also agree that it was never ratified. This was actually a question that was brought up to completely clear up the conversation on it. And the amendment is still pending before the states and can become law. But it would not apply to lawyers because all the states also recognize that lawyers, no matter what oath or claim they make and whatever history it might have, this has actually come up in court because sovereign citizens keep bringing this kind of shit up. Lawyers are not imbued with some capacity based on a foreign fucking government. If you come into a courtroom and say that the courtroom is invalid, or the ship's overboard, or everybody overboard, or make up some sort of weird spoken word photography, performance art bullshit about how every lawyer is really a reptilian from Planet X, or they're all property of the Queen of England. None of them have to listen to you about this, but if you're curious, this has been ruled in court to be an invalid argument because of the explicit statement in each state and municipality, you idiots have run this through, that it's not true, and an acknowledgement by all of the countries that are claimed to run it, including the Vatican, that they do not have control over any lawyers or anybody else in another country. Countries and the leaders of them have overtly stated that this is not something they're allowed to invoke because they have renounced that ability to be able to exist because they've been asked about it. When the people you claim are running this, and you claim it's obviously part of law, state that the law doesn't exist and they never invoked it, and you claim it's a secret law, but they're openly admitting it. Well, they're flamboyant about it, but they tell you it's not real. They're not overt about it. And then you claim it's really secret, but you know it's them hinting at it because of a fringe on a flag, or the fact that we drive on the right-hand side of the road instead of the left-hand. Somehow that's important in a couple of videos. When anybody listens to someone say this, there's no reason for anyone to take them seriously. Again, you're defying all the states saying you're wrong, each of the countries involved saying you're wrong, everybody you say who's in charge of the world saying they're not, and most importantly, no one listening to you and you not being able to prove your point just makes a specific variety of person I call an asshole double down and yell it louder. And so let's listen to a few comments here. But again, the states and the federal government and every other government say none of this applies to them, and it can't. The original 13th Amendment said nobody of any nobility could run for public office. No, believe it or not, there is another out for it, but again, it wasn't passed. It said American citizens that accepted or had a title or nobility or an honor from a foreign country without consent of Congress. If they got permission from Congress, it wouldn't apply. You could request ahead of time to have a title given to you. It's just a formality. As long as you weren't going to lose the binding status of it being that you're an American, you're fine. The other problem with this is if you accepted this sort of nobility thing, then there could be a claim made against the United States. Unless everything's all kosher with them, you can't do it. But if you say you can, then it doesn't affect that. So this absolute statement isn't true. It was ratified but not put in the Constitution. In order to be put into the Constitution, it has to be ratified. If you're saying it was ratified, it would have to be part of the Constitution. It was not ratified. You made a simple mistake here. It was voted on and got past a certain point, but the states individually decided not to pass it. What you don't know will hurt you, and has. The people are the government if there was one. What would you expect the tyrants to do? Just give up? The United States is based on defeating and excluding a tyrannical government, the British government, at one time. You deciding that it's still in place doesn't hold water, and we don't care. But I'm going to say I care because you need attention. We are ruled and robbed by force and nothing else. If you do not like the situation you're in, either change it or nullify it, which is what I do in my life as much as I can. Most of us do. Or you could find someplace better. I dare you to find a better place to live on Earth that's free of this supposed persecution you're experiencing. I'd like to hear about someplace like that. Next person. It's all fact. You obviously don't know what you're talking about. And then he says, if you think WikiLeaks or Snopes is a reliable source, I have an Ouija board for sale, and it's the same thing. At least you acknowledge that Ouija boards don't have any power over anybody. I'm glad you're a little bit better than most. Next, in the video itself that you're commenting under, I say that I test and I do not trust sources such as WikiLeaks, Snopes, or Wikipedia. If they all agree on something, I get a bit suspicious, but I do double check them. And the fact is that WikiLeaks cites their sources as best they can. Snopes cites most of their sources. Wikipedia has a requirement that you have sources to cite. And I also look up other independent sources. But more importantly, the video you're talking about is me responding to someone using using WikiLeaks as a source and demanding I take them seriously. And my response is that I looked at what they said and I gave an opinion about it. And all the other sources, because I'm not going to limit myself. Next. Yes, you are part of English court. They're all linked under the same rule, and I can prove it. Now, I'm going to point out something that almost all countries on Earth, not all, will honor decisions in other countries' court systems to a limit. That is done by treaty and agreement. It is not done de facto. A decision made in the Congo does not affect anybody in the United States. A warlord in Central America doesn't have the right to say that he now owns the United States. It's bullshit. We don't have to honor it. And other countries won't honor our decisions too. Hence the reason that us having a rule that says we can take in Julian Assange didn't work when he got amnesty at a specific location held by another government. If Waptek gets a divorce in a U.S. court, he's also divorced in every other court in the world. Yes? Other courts can choose to ignore that, and that's already happened to me. Again, why did you pick this channel as your hill to die on? I am officially divorced from someone who chose to marry me. We got a consensual divorce. That means we both decided we didn't want to be married. It took a while, but I was able to get a consensual divorce, which is something you can't de-invoke. She's from a country where divorce isn't fucking legal. It's not recognized in the other country, and they basically say she's always married, unless she does it their way, which she can do independently without me in the country, and she did, when we were still legally married in the United States until we got a divorce. Your argument's invalid because you've chosen that example? Thus, Waptek is proving my point that all courts are linked. No. No, they're not. Because another set of courts said we were never married in the first place. Because she has relatives from several countries, and one of the countries doesn't authorize a marriage with anyone who's a blood relative 2 or 3 generations down unless you get permission from the king. I didn't get the king's permission because the king can suck my dick. I'm not asking permission for the king of any country. I bow to no man. Maybe hot chick, but no man. And again, until she was able to invoke it, before we were divorced in the United States, we were still married against my will until she invoked some procedure in her country. They do not honor things universally. Why would you pick divorce? That's one of the few things I know of that isn't honored everywhere. Why would you do that? Are you her? Ooh, that's icky. Okay. I don't like you that way. We got divorced. Go away. Stop it. Okay, anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. And yeah, a bunch of people posting shit based on not looking shit up again. No, I'm not mentioning which country. Go look up what countries do not honor decisions in the United States concerning specifically divorce because of cultural, religious, or Islamic law against the will of everybody. Apparently. Some countries don't let you get married no matter what. You're never really married. You have to be some other damn status. It's a different culture. It's bullshit. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.